Jason Lloyd didn't just break a story. He detonated a truth bomb that's shaking Cleveland to its core. For years, the Browns' dysfunction has been whispered about, but Lloyd's revelations have given those rumors a face and a name: Kevin Stefanski. According to Lloyd, the coach's authority isn't just in question, it's been hijacked. From secret front office meetings to deliberately misleading injury reports, this is no longer about bad coaching or unlucky breaks. It's about a deliberate system of manipulation, one that's using Shedeur Sanders as its scapegoat.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Behind closed doors, the decision-making isn't about football. It's about protecting the powerful and silencing potential threats. The real story isn't just that Sanders is being sidelined. It's why. His absence protects the image of an organization unraveling from the inside. The ownership, led by Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry, appears more interested in preserving control than fostering success. Every snap Sanders doesn't take, every narrative pushed through media leaks, reinforces the rot Lloyd exposed, a franchise willing to destroy its own promise just to hide the truth. Jason Lloyd just blew the lid off what might be the most chaotic scandal the Cleveland Browns have seen in years. And yes, that's saying a lot. We're not talking about bad play calling or a disappointing season. This is deep, like sabotage from the top, cover-up level deep. And at the center of it all, head coach Kevin Stefanski, a power-hungry front office, and the systematic takedown of quarterback Shedeur Sanders. This isn't just a messy coaching decision or a difference in football philosophy. According to Lloyd, a plugged-in Browns insider who doesn't throw bombs for fun, this is corruption, like full-on organizational rot. He's saying out loud what fans have whispered for months. Something is seriously off inside the Browns franchise. And it all circles around Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback with real potential, who's somehow being pushed further and further out of the spotlight. Now, let's be clear. Shedeur isn't riding the bench because of poor performance. Lloyd makes it crystal. The talent is there. The readiness is there. But still, he's been intentionally sidelined. Not because he's injured. Not really. But because it benefits the people in charge to keep him there. The Browns, allegedly, are pulling every trick in the book to stall his development. Phony injury reports, manipulated narratives, and questionable medical decisions. All part of what Lloyd calls a deliberate effort to hold Sanders back, and not for the good of the team. This is about saving face, protecting egos, and hiding years of quarterback mismanagement. So, let's talk about that hierarchy, because it's not just Stefanski pulling strings in the shadows. This is coming from the top. Ownership, Jimmy Haslam, and GM Andrew Berry are allegedly the real power players here, micromanaging football decisions while publicly pretending to stay hands-off. Lloyd says there's a full-blown power struggle happening behind the scenes, with Stefanski acting like a head coach, but clearly not holding the keys. The chaos runs deep enough that Stefanski, a man supposedly running the show, has been stripped of his play-calling duties twice. Not once, twice. That's not a small tweak. That's a flashing neon sign that the organization doesn't trust him, and yet he's still standing on the sideline every week, wearing the headset. That kind of internal dysfunction doesn't just happen by accident. It takes layers of mismanagement, poor leadership, and a culture that protects the wrong people. And the worst part? Players like Sanders are the ones who get crushed under the weight of it. Lloyd's expose lays out how Shedeur's supposed back injury became a convenient excuse to keep him out of the action. They flew him across the country for treatment. He sat out games when he looked ready to go. And yet, no transparency, no clarity, just vague updates and a carefully controlled narrative that made it seem like Sanders wasn't ready. All while the team continues to spiral, and the fans are left guessing. Lloyd isn't guessing, though. He's seen enough behind the scenes to say the quiet part out loud. The Browns are manipulating injuries and hiding decisions to cover their own failures. And the reason Shedeur Sanders isn't on the field, it's not because he's not good enough. It's because if he were out there and played well, it would expose every mistake they've made at the quarterback position over the years. Every misfire, every missed opportunity, every draft pick wasted. Letting Shedeur shine would be a mirror they don't want to look into. That's where the corruption angle really hits. This isn't just incompetence, it's self-preservation. Lloyd makes it clear. The people in charge are more interested in protecting their own reputations than doing what's best for the team. Sanders is being used as a pawn, a rookie QB with actual promise, reduced to a tool in a PR strategy. And the ripple effects go beyond the field. When a team starts prioritizing politics over performance, the culture rots, trust erodes, players stop believing in the system, and the fans, who have already endured more than their fair share of disappointment, are once again watching the Browns implode from the inside. And it's not like they're trying to hide it that well. The Browns, according to Lloyd, have been leaking false injury updates, spinning stories through friendly media outlets, and doing whatever it takes to shift the blame elsewhere. It's all part of what he calls a calculated media manipulation campaign, one that's designed to make Stefanski look like a victim of circumstance, Barry look like a genius playing the long game, and Haslam look like he's not involved at all. But the cracks are showing. Stefanski losing play-calling duties twice signals that even inside the building, trust has vanished. Decisions aren't being made by football logic anymore. They're being made in secret meetings, based on politics, alliances, and fear. Fear that the truth will get out. Fear that Sanders will get on the field and play lights-out football. Fear that the whole house of cards will collapse. And here's the kicker. Lloyd thinks this is just the beginning. He flat out said this entire scandal is worthy of a 30 for 30. That's not hyperbole. That's a warning. This isn't just a bad season. This is a breakdown that could, and probably will, become the subject of a full-blown documentary. Years from now, people will look back and ask, how did it get this bad? How did a franchise with talent, fans, and resources become the setting for one of the most stunning meltdowns in NFL history? The answer, if you ask Lloyd, is corruption. Not the kind you get arrested for. The kind that infects culture, that slowly dismantles trust and hides the rot under layers of spin. The Browns, he says, are broken from the top down. A team where management cares more about optics than outcomes, where a young quarterback with real talent is buried to protect fragile egos, and where leadership instability is not a side note, it's the headline. And if you're thinking this could never happen in your franchise, think again. Lloyd's expose might focus on Cleveland, but the implications stretch across the league. How many other teams are letting politics dictate personnel? How many other players are being stashed or sabotaged to protect someone's job security? How many decisions are being made behind closed doors that fans never hear about? In the Browns' case, it's all out in the open now. Thanks to Jason Lloyd, the whispers have become headlines. The secrecy is unraveling. And while the franchise tries to keep up appearances, the damage is already done. Fans are losing trust. Players are questioning their roles. And Shedeur Sanders, who should be building his NFL legacy, is stuck on the sidelines, held back not by injury, but by dysfunction. The question now is what happens next. Will ownership double down and keep the same people in place, hoping the storm passes? Will Stefanski survive another year with his authority stripped and his credibility shot? Will Sanders ever get a fair shot to prove himself? Or will this scandal mark the beginning of an even bigger reckoning for the Browns? Because if even half of what Lloyd claims is true, this isn't just another Cleveland Browns controversy. This is a franchise in crisis, with corruption woven into its very core. The kind of story that doesn't just end when the season does. It lingers. It festers. It forces a hard reset. And when that 30 for 30 eventually drops, you'll remember where you heard it first. If you're just as stunned as we are, let us know what you think. Do you believe Jason Lloyd's account? Is Shedeur Sanders being sabotaged? And who should really be held accountable here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next time a football team blows itself up from the inside. What makes this story even more outrageous is how calculated the whole thing feels. We're not looking at a team that simply made some bad calls. We're looking at a full-on operation, one where hiding mistakes seems more important than correcting them. And Shedeur Sanders? He's just collateral damage. A young, promising quarterback essentially frozen out of the game, not because he's not good enough, not because he can't handle the spotlight, but because someone upstairs decided that letting him play would open a door they desperately want to keep shut. And here's the part that really burns. Fans were excited. Browns fans, who had been dragged through quarterback hell for decades, finally had someone they could rally behind. Shedeur wasn't just another name on the jersey carousel. He came with pedigree, poise, and that undeniable factor. But from the second he stepped into the building, it was like a trap had already been set. The moment he posed a threat to the status quo, to the string of past quarterback investments the team had already botched, it was game over. And that's the thing. This wasn't about Shedeur failing to prove himself. This was about the front office not being able to handle what it would mean if he did. Because if Sanders had come in, lit up, and turned the team around, then suddenly every decision that led up to that point would be under a microscope. Every quarterback the Browns passed on, every coaching hire, every draft pick. It would expose just how much this franchise has fumbled the most important position in football again and again and again. So instead, they chose a safer path, the path of suppression. Hide behind injuries, whisper about development timelines, paint Shedeur as someone who just needs more time, while quietly doing everything possible to ensure he never gets that chance. And the injury angle? Let's talk about that. Jason Lloyd didn't just hint at mismanagement. He outright said that the way the Browns handled Shedeur's back issue was suspicious, flying him across the country for treatment when you've got world-class medical staff in-house, keeping him sidelined while simultaneously leaking narratives that he's close or almost ready without ever committing to a return date. It all feels like smoke and mirrors, the kind of overly engineered damage control that reeks of internal manipulation. Because here's the truth. If Shedeur really was still hurt, the team wouldn't need to be this cryptic about it. But if he wasn't hurt, if he was ready to go and they kept him out anyway, that's not medical caution. That's sabotage. And Stefanski? Oh, he's not off the hook either. Lloyd's revelation that he lost his play-calling responsibilities twice is a flashing red alert that things behind the scenes are far worse than the Browns want to admit. Think about that for a second. A head coach whose literal job is to manage the offense, being stripped of that responsibility twice, and still being propped up as a leader of the team, that's not coaching. That's puppetry. It tells you all you need to know about how broken the internal structure really is. Stefanski's out here acting like he's calling the shots, but the real power is sitting behind closed doors in ownership meetings. Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry are the ones pulling the strings, and they build a culture where nobody trusts anyone. Transparency is non-existent, and the goal is no longer to win. It's to control the narrative. This is a kind of dysfunction that doesn't stay contained. It seeps into every aspect of the team, from locker room dynamics to media relations to game day decisions. You think players don't notice this stuff? Of course they do. They see the politics. They feel the tension. And when one of their own, especially a young guy like Sanders, gets iced out for reasons that clearly aren't about performance, it sends a message. You're not safe either. And what about accountability? Because right now it's nowhere to be found. No one's owning up. Not Stefanski. Not Berry. Not Haslam. Instead, they're all pointing fingers, deflecting, hiding behind press releases and vague injury updates, hoping this story doesn't get too loud. But Lloyd made it loud. He cracked open the door, and now the chaos is spilling out for everyone to see. And it's not going away. Not this time. Not when the word corruption is being used. Not when respected insiders are saying this deserves a full-length documentary. You don't just slap a Band-Aid on that and hope the media cycle moves on. This kind of dysfunction demands consequences. And yet no firings, no statements, just silence, controlled, awkward silence. What we're watching right now is the Browns choosing to protect their image over their future. Because the minute they let Shedeur on that field and he proves them wrong, the walls come down. The mistakes become undeniable. And the people at the top, they'd rather burn the whole thing down than admit they messed up. But here's the irony. They're messing up anyway. The cover-up isn't saving the team. It's just making the implosion more spectacular. The Browns aren't winning. The fans are furious. The locker room is fractured. And every week that Sanders doesn't play, the questions get louder. And let's be real, This isn't the first time the Browns have been caught in a spiral, but this time feels different. This isn't just bad football decisions or a toxic coach. This is an entire organization corrupted by ego, pride, and a desperate need to avoid accountability. It's Shakespearean. You got betrayal, backstabbing, a promising young star being sacrificed, and a leadership group clinging to power like it's the last life vest on a sinking ship. So what now? Do they finally face the music and course correct? Or do they keep burying the truth until the only people left watching are the ones waiting for the next collapse? Because let's not forget, Jason Lloyd didn't speculate. He exposed. He said this is headed for 30 for 30 territory. That's not a warning shot. That's a promise. That years from now, we'll be watching clips of Sanders on the sideline, listening to players talk about how broken things really were, and wondering how it ever got this bad. And when it happens, when that documentary drops, every executive who played a role in this will be scrambling to rewrite history, to say it wasn't their fault, that they were misunderstood. But by then, it'll be too late. The story will already be written. So if you're a Browns fan or just someone who cares about the integrity of the sport, this isn't something you can just shrug off. This matters. Because what's happening to Shedeur Sanders right now is not just unfair. It's dangerous. It sets a precedent that players are disposable, that truth is optional, and that winning isn't as important as protecting the people in charge. And if you're Shedeur, what are you supposed to do? You've got the skills. You've got the drive. But you're stuck in a franchise that sees you as a liability, not an asset. That's the kind of situation that derails careers before they even start. And the worst part? Most of the public still doesn't know how bad it really is. But now they do, because Jason Lloyd pulled back the curtain. And once you see what's behind it, you can't unsee it. And look, we need to talk about the long-term damage this kind of sabotage does. Because this isn't just a one-season scandal that gets swept under the rug when the next draft class rolls around. This is legacy-altering, not just for the Browns franchise, but for Shedeur Sanders as a player. This kid had a real shot at becoming the future of the team. A young quarterback with poise under pressure, leadership skills, and a serious football pedigree. But instead of being developed, he's being managed, not like a player, but like a PR risk. And that distinction is important. When a front office starts making moves based on how they'll look, instead of how they'll work, you don't get winning football, you get a power struggle with cleats on. And for Shedeur, it's worse than just being benched. He's being discredited. Slowly. Quietly. The Browns aren't trashing him publicly, but they're letting the narrative slip just far enough that people start to question him. Maybe he's not ready. Maybe the injury is more serious than we thought. Maybe the coaches know something we don't. That maybe is intentional. It's how they protect themselves. By not saying anything clearly, they leave enough space to shape the story in whatever direction helps them most. And Shedeur, he doesn't get to defend himself. He can't go on a mic and call out the franchise for hiding behind fake injury updates. He has to stay professional. He has to play the game, while the actual game is being taken away from him. And it's not just him paying the price. This kind of dysfunction becomes a virus. It spreads. Other players start, wondering who's next. If they step out of line, speak up, challenge a narrative, will they be sidelined too? Will their injuries suddenly become unclear? Will their future quietly vanish under a cloud of vague reports and ghosted promises? This is how trust dies inside a locker room, not in a single moment, but in slow, silent betrayal. And once it's gone, it's almost impossible to get back. And let's be real, this isn't just about Shedeur or Stefanski. This is about the entire system the Browns have built. A system where ownership meddles in coaching decisions, where management protects themselves instead of their players, where the coaching staff gets scapegoated while the people upstairs manipulate the chessboard. You think this is the last young player they're going to mishandle if this pattern holds? Absolutely not. If you're a rising star in the draft, why would you want to land in Cleveland after this? Why would you trust a franchise that buries talent for convenience? And yes, there's still the matter of Stefanski. Because as much as this story centers on the upper levels of the organization, he's not just a passive victim here. You don't survive having your play-calling duties ripped from you twice unless you're complicit. Or, at the very least, willing to play ball with the people making those calls. At some point, you have to ask, what is he doing to stay in that position? Because if Stefanski really believed in Sanders, if he truly thought the kid gave the Browns the best chance to win, you'd think he'd be fighting for him, right? So either he's lost all control and is just riding this out until the next firing cycle, or worse, he's part of the effort to keep the spotlight off Sanders and keep the illusion alive that this team is in control. But guess what? They're not in control. The leaks are out. Jason Lloyd cracked the dam wide open. And the more they try to patch it up with vague statements or media spin, the more obvious it becomes that something deeply dysfunctional is happening inside those walls. This isn't just a sports story anymore. It's a case study in how power, ego, and fear can twist a franchise into something unrecognizable, and how a player with all the tools to succeed can be buried, not because of lack of skill, but because the people in charge are terrified of being proven wrong. You want to know why Lloyd's comments about a 30 for 30 hit so hard? Because this has every ingredient. The talented but suppressed rookie, the spiraling franchise, the silent sabotage, the leadership vacuum, the media smokescreens, and the growing realization that something is seriously, historically wrong. And if that documentary ever gets made, it's not going to be about one bad season. It's going to be about a franchise that had a shot to turn things around, and instead chose to double down on dysfunction. A team that sacrifices future to protect its past mistakes. So if you've made it this far, you probably feel it too, that mix of disbelief, frustration, and low-key outrage. Because this is bigger than one player or one coach. This is what happens when the wrong people have too much power and zero accountability. Let us know what you're thinking in the comments. Are you buying what Jason Lloyd is selling? Do you think the Browns can recover from this mess? And what does this mean for Shedeur Sanders moving forward? Hit that like button if this whole thing has you shaking your head. Share it with someone who's still holding out hope for the Browns. And make sure you subscribe, because something tells us this story is just getting started.